Hello and welcome to the Floyd County Police Department. My name is Chris Fincher. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Police Department. Today I'm joined by Roger Hayes. He is from the Governor's Office of Highway Safety. If you would, Roger, introduce yourself to us and tell us what your office does for the state.
Certainly. Thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here to start off with. I'm the Director of Law Enforcement Services for the Governor's Office of Highway Safety. It's a small office. We only have 28 people at the Governor's Office, period. But our primary mission is to support law enforcement and support agencies around the state, as well as our mission statement is pretty clear. It's to reduce crashes and injuries and fatalities on the highways of the state of Georgia.
And the reason we've invited you to our office today is Floyd County has seen a significant rise in our crash numbers. This year, we're well ahead of our 2019 numbers when we were 13th in the state. And just in our talking before we came on today, you're saying that the state overall is having the same problem, right?
We are. So far, as of today, in the state of Georgia, we've had 950 fatalities. That's 950 of our friends, family,
right,
neighbors, church members, that are no longer here to be with us. That is a 16% increase just over last year.
What is so 16%? Why do you think that is? Why so much over last year? What's getting those numbers up?
We're kind of referring to it as the pandemic after the pandemic. In 2020, we saw a decrease in the number of miles traveled, but the people that were traveling, their behavior, if you would, was a little worse. See more speed. If you travel on the interstates or around anywhere, you'll see a lot more vehicles that are speeding. You see just a lot more bad behavior of those speeds creating those crashes.
Is it because we were cooped up so much last year and now we're out in the open, we're just ready to be free? Is that?
We certainly think some of it is, but people have just got to learn. One of the big things is just putting the cell phone down.
Yeah.
Not driving distracted. So you basically, and it was interesting from one of your previous podcasts, the three things that y'all are seeing here in Floyd County, we're seeing in the state of Georgia, but I can tell you region-wide in the 5-state region of the southern United States, they're seeing the exact same thing.
And those three things are aggressive driving, distracted driving, and impaired driving. Right.
That's correct. And one of the when you mold all that together, and then you compound that with people not wearing their seatbelt, occupant protection, we've had 59% of the people that died on the highways this year have not been buckled up.
Now, we've been doing seatbelt campaigns just for a long time. Why aren't people wearing?
I mean, years and years. I can't even remember when it started, but it's always been, ever since, almost all since my children started driving, it was always, or started in a car. They knew they had to be in a car seat. Right. They knew that we had to put on the cars, and we used to teach kids long years ago, hey, if mom and daddy gets in the car and doesn't buckle up, help us remind them.
Right.
So, I got to tell you, I was bad, 25 years ago. Didn't wear my seatbelt till my daughter, who is now a mother of her own, sat in the back seat and said, Daddy, are you going to put on your seatbelt?
Yeah.
And I put it on and have wore it ever since. But now when you see that and you see the results of not wearing a seatbelt, a simple 2-second drill, take it, click it, you're there. Yeah. And it is an engineering marvel. It is the simplest engineering thing because it holds you there. So no matter if you're in a rollover crash, side crash, any way it goes, it keeps you where the vehicle is designed to be, right there behind that steering wheel.
So the seatbelt is anchored to the frame of the vehicle, and that's what causes that to be such a sturdy device, right?
That's exactly right. If you ever look, there's big bolts that go right into the frame. And now the newer cars have just a mirage of airbags in them.
Right.
Side curtains, side, front, back, everywhere I go. Well, those all are designed by smart engineers to work together. So people say, I've heard people say, well, we got airbags in the car. Yeah, but airbags deploy over 200 miles an hour. So we want you to kind of be locked in there and them hold you
Right.
in the cabin of that car. So it's all got to work in concert.
And, you know, it's funny you say that about your children. Those are the lessons that you really take to heart. It's embarrassing for you, but, you know, that's the same lesson that I teach kids whenever we go out and talk to groups. I'm like, if you see your parents on the phone, if you see them distracted with food or the pet, I said, it's your job to tell them to stop. I said, be nice, but I said, it's your job in the back seat to do that. That's what I want you to do to save a life.
Absolutely. That's one of the things that I love to do, and we get to do quite often with the governor's office, and we've done it right here with Pepperell High School.
Yeah.
Bringing the rollover simulator and the seatbelt convincer and working with those kids at the different events. And you know, we relay the seatbelt thing to them a little bit from their STEM program
Right.
at the schools. And somebody looked at me one day and I said, think about it. You know, it's science, technology, engineering, math. Every one of those went into
Right. You're
the
exactly right.
seat belts. Mm-hmm. It went into the design of the car. It went into the airbags. So the kids nowadays, they're a lot smarter than I was when I was coming up and many, many years ago. So they relate better to that. So they're thinking about it, say, wow, those are.
Right.
And you can show them, we can show them what happens in a rollover crash, that a simulated rollover crash, because we send crash dummies flying.
Right.
And then we can actually let them get on the seatbelt convincer, and it simulates a 5 to 7 mile an hour crash, and they feel the impact of the seatbelt. And then one of us is standing there telling them at the end, now what I want you to think about is you're very rarely going to be in a 5 to 7 mile an hour crash. We want you to multiply that force times 10 in your mind, because it's going to be a 50 to 70 mile an hour crash.
Right. Some other things that we talked about before coming in today was how comfortable some of our cars are today. And it's easy to get real lackadaisical when you're going down the highway, especially on a long trip. But even going across town, it's really easy to sit back. You can't hear anything about what's going on out there, but you forget what's going on, and that can lead to a crash, right?
Absolutely. You know, technology has far exceeded what we could have ever thought of 20 years ago. But even in my vehicle that I drive on a daily basis, I get in there, you shut the doors, it's kind of airtight.
Sure.
We've got great sound systems in there, and they're comfortable seats. You turn it, you get your seat set just like you want. It's almost like being in your recliner at home.
Right.
Well, if I get in my recliner at home, what am I going to do?
You're going to sleep.
I'm going to sleep,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So people have to think, law enforcement officers, any first responders feel the effect of that as well, because you get in there, if you come to an intersection and an emergency, they've got their lights and siren going. A lot of vehicles, it's not that they ignore them, they just flat don't hear them.
Right.
So you get in there, get comfortable, your speed can possibly ease up, your foot just get a little heavier, and you do that. You may think about that phone, reach down, pick up that phone or something like that. So there's a lot of distractions.
Technology is also something that is a hazard to us because cars have come with so many computers, and there's so much to do in the car while you're going down the road to keep you from getting bored outside of the vehicle, but you're operating a dangerous piece of machinery. I mean, how much does the average vehicle weigh?
3,500 pounds.
And you're going 60 to 90 miles an hour. That is that is an incredible equation for
think
disaster.
about your response time. Your response time is going to be in seconds, and then when you have that response time at 70 miles an hour, then by the time you hit the brakes,
Right.
you've got still a long stopping distance,
Right.
you know, to get there. So you got reaction time and stopping time to keep me from not running into you when somebody stopped in front of you. That leads you to another issue that we are seeing not only in the state of Georgia but in other states as well: pedestrian fatalities. You know, people crossing the road. Well, if they're in a crosswalk, they have the right of way. Right. So if you're going down and I'm looking down at my cell phone or doing something, trying to reply to my wife if she sent me something, yes, baby, I'm on the way home or something like that, and I look up and I see that person and I'm 30 feet from them, I apply the brakes. We've got analog brakes, so I'm still going to keep going. So the probability is very high that I would hit that person.
Just because you're in a hurry doesn't mean everybody's going to get out of your way. You still need to be able to stay in your lane and obey the rules. Because even if you're driving super fast, you're only going to get there by a couple of seconds, right? Is that what we've commonly heard?
It is. It really is, and it's kind of funny. You know, if you're riding down the road and somebody's like almost running over you, and then you get to that, you get off on the exit or you get to the red light, and you almost smile when you pull up beside that guy that almost run over you. You look over and kind of wave and say, hey,
buddy.
You know, I'm here at the same time you are.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's people just need to slow down in all aspects. In Roger's humble opinion, you know, just leave 5 minutes earlier to give yourself that extra time and to get there. And you know, one of the problems that you have too is people just drive. Mm-hmm. They never really inspect their vehicle. They never walk around it and look to see if all their tires are good, if they're properly inflated, things like that. So all of that plays into that. If you've got bald tires,
right,
or tires that are below the wear mark on there, and you put on brakes,
that extends your stopping time.
It will extend your stopping time.
Really, there's just basic steps to being safe. It's looking around, it's being observant, and that is the biggest thing that can help save your life.
It is. It is focusing on the task at hand, which is operating that piece of heavy machinery, not sending text, you know, watching movies, things like that. Just focus on that, and that's what we try to just get people to do. Everything else is distracted driving.
Now, you mentioned heavy machinery. If I go out and I get a prescription from the doctor, what's probably one of the biggest warnings that's on that label?
You'll see a warning label on that prescription bottle that says, do not operate heavy machinery.
Does that mean a bulldozer, or what does that mean?
Well, it can, but, you know, most of the times not. It's just a car.
Right.
It's any piece of machinery like that. A car is nothing but a piece of machinery. 3,500 pounds, that's heavy to me. I can't pick it up.
Right.
So a lot of people, if they get, for instance, prescription painkillers or something like that, they have that label on there, then the doctor and the pharmacist, the manufacturer all know it will create some impairment.
Right.
So they say don't do it. But we continue to see people, and a lot of times I think that people just don't realize it.
Sure.
Sometimes it's older people. Mm-hmm. My mother is 89. I have to kind of watch her sometimes. Now, if you take this, Mama, you can't drive. But they will be impaired, and they can be arrested and taken to jail, even though the doctor gave them that, and they're supposed to be taking it, but It says don't drive.
Right. So we're going to talk about the top three again. Those are aggressive driving. If you break that down, those are speeding, following too close, and improper lane change. Speeding speaks for itself. You said statewide that's an issue. And y'all have got several operations going that have been directed at that, right?
We're just trying to remind people just to slow down. Everybody's trying to get in that, and we want them to. We want them to get that last vacation trip, that last trip to the beach, or that last trip to the mountains. But we want you to be able to get there and get back safely. We don't want to have what happened in Cobb County this morning, when the whole interstate 85 had to be shut down completely because of a crash.
Gosh. Speeding, you said leave sooner, but also don't take it personally. If somebody pulls in front of you, that's not an offense to you.
Yeah, they don't know you.
Sure.
Just back off, just back off a little bit. And that leads into sometimes when somebody goes around you, don't let it, like you said, I like the way you said that, don't take it personally and start following too close.
Right.
Don't get back up on, because if they have to put on brakes, you can't see around that vehicle because you're so close on their bumper.
Right.
So it leads right to it.
And that also leads to improper lane change. If you have to stop, you know you can't stop, so you change lanes, you come over on top of somebody.
Exactly.
Or you come over on top of a pedestrian.
Yes. Or
the other-
right into a guardrail.
Sure,
You
sure.
know?
The other is distracted driving. That very much includes the hands-free law, but also failure to yield and failure to maintain lane.
Yes. So when you talk about the distracted driving, a lot of people think Georgia's distracted driving law is only about that cell phone. Mm-hmm. But the law actually says anything that can take your attention away from that main task of driving. So it could be if you're eating.
Yep.
If you've got a slice of pizza in one hand and dipping sauce in the other hand, and you're trying to eat to get to your next destination, but you're driving with your knee,
Sure.
That's distracted driving. Something that's not popular when I tell people, if you got your dog in the car and he's sitting up there in your lap, if it's not a little bitty foo-foo dog, and you've seen some big,
Yes, sir.
I've passed vehicles and I'm like, who's driving the car, the dog or the parent? I love dogs. I love animals, but I don't want my dog to die either.
Yeah.
So my dog needs to be over there. So that can be a distraction. There is so many, as you was mentioning earlier, vehicles now. There's so many distractions just in the vehicle. Your kids in the back seat can be a distraction. That person that called you, even if you're on Bluetooth,
Yep.
if somebody calls you and maybe it's a work-related phone call that somebody's like, there's an issue. You know, you're going to start thinking about that
Right.
versus doing that. So we just encourage people to say, hey, give me just a minute. Let me get pulled over down here. Let me stop at the next convenience store or something, and I'll call you right back. And the failure to maintain lane. So when you get into the distracted, as we say, just like the young lady I was behind this morning, she was distracted and she was all over the road, crossing the center line, crossing the fog line. So all of it plays into that whole piece of distracted.
Excellent. And we've talked about impaired driving. We actually led into this conversation with impaired driving. It's more than just alcohol. It's prescription drugs. It's even your illicit drugs, your narcotics, and that sort of thing.
And, you know, we've went over the years. It used to be driving under the influence of alcohol or it's drunk driving and things. And now because of all that, it has went to impaired driving. And 25% of our crashes in Georgia are related to impaired driving.
That's good information. But most basic above all that is wear your seatbelt. You said 59% of these fatalities have all been related to people not wearing their seatbelt.
Absolutely. We kind of boil it down to four things, and I'm bad about this. Number one, slow down. Number two, put on your seatbelt every trip, every time. Put the phone down. Don't drive distracted, and don't drive impaired. If you do those four things, you will more than likely get to where you need to be, unless you've got that other person, as we was talking about earlier, that other person that you're trying to watch out for.
You may not get a trophy, but at the end of the day, you're going home to your family.
That's right. We've had people over the years, I'm sure y'all have too, that said, well, it's all about the money. I promise you it's not. Our officers, for the most part, are underpaid in the whole state of Georgia and all. They're out there trying to serve the public. You are our customer.
Yep.
So we're trying to do that.
It's all about serving people and protecting people, and we're doing both of those whenever we're making those traffic stops.
It's all about you.
Yep, that's right. Thank you, Roger, very much for joining us today from the Governor's Office of Highway Safety. We're looking forward to working y'all a lot more in the future.
Yes, sir.
And with what you do with not only our kids, but also with law enforcement statewide. So thank you very much for that. So have a great day. Be safe. Thank you.